Okay, so Anthony Jeselnik has a new special that is under a lot of controversy right now. Apparently, he took some shots at Joe Rogan. He also took a minute in the end to talk about Norm McDonald for a little bit. But we're also going to talk about the special as a whole. So what do I think of the...
Babe,
what's up?
you're literally wearing my Oodie.
Yeah.
I had to put on my default Oodie. Can I have my Oodie, please?
Yeah.
He does this all the time and thinks I won't notice.
I knew you'd notice. I wanted you to come in here. Hope it smells like me.
Camera's blocking the door. Can I get out of here?
Yeah, no problem. I got you. Let me just... Light of my life. No, babe, I'm not talking shit. No.
That's what I thought.
Love you. Contrary to popular belief, this is a stand-up channel. So Anthony Jeselnik, bones and all. What did I think about it? Let me go ahead and look at my Jessel notes. So a little bit of background on Anthony Jeselnik, if you're not too familiar. Anthony Jeselnik is a one-liner, dark humor type comic. A lot of people point to Anthony Jeselnik's style of humor and goes, see? Anthony Jeselnik says a bunch of awful shit. How come I can't say slurs? Well, Anthony Jeselnik got a lot of fame for being on the Comedy Central roasts. His material, like I said, is very, very dark. It's very reminiscent of a Stephen Wright or a Norm McDonald. And I've referenced him a lot on this channel, actually. I always reference Anthony Jeselnik as somebody who does do that dark shock value type humor, but he never does it in a way that is cancelable. A lot of comics lately have been coming under fire for doing jokes about trans people or just thinking slurs are funny. And I have said this on my social medias. I have said this in my YouTube videos. The thing I hate most about comedy today is people are just, the trend seems to be working backwards from slurs are funny. How can I get away with saying slurs? And I probably have said this other places. George Carlin always said, the thing about being a comedian is purposefully crossing the line and making the audience happy that you did it. And most comedians forget the second half. Audiences are happy that you did it. Comedians are supposed to cross the line. Anthony Jeselnik definitely crosses the line. But the difference between Anthony Jeselnik and your Roseanne Barrs or your ultra-right conservative comics, your Dave Chappelle's even these days, is that the audience is happy when Anthony Jeselnik does it, because stand-up is a tightrope walk that you have to walk, and if you fall off the rope, you can't get mad at the fucking rope. Being a comedian is like being a trapeze artist, and when you fall off the rope, I need a wider rope. That doesn't make it more interesting. Before I get into what Anthony Jeselnik said about cancel culture and Joe Rogan, and before we do a lovely Norm McDonald tribute, I want to talk about the special on its own, Sans Politics. If we can, please, Sans Politics. Let's talk about stand-up. I'm not sure which Anthony Jeselnik special this is at this point, because this is his basically 20th anniversary special. So I remember I watched his 30-minute Comedy Central special. I've seen him on countless roasts. I'm familiar with his previous work. A lot of comics, when they've been in the game this long, you run out of how many specials they've done. Anthony Jeselnik was never the type of comic to overproduce himself, so it's not like he pumps out a new special every year. Usually the best comics give it 2 to 3 years before they pump out a new special. Because you gotta, write. You gotta take some time, hone a craft, go on tour, What I love about this special in particular, but also what I love about Anthony Jeselnik generally, is he is a writer first and foremost. I mentioned Stephen Wright earlier. Stephen Wright has a very deadpan delivery. Anthony Jeselnik also has a very slow delivery. I feel like his pacing has increased over the years, because that was a common criticism that he used to receive, is that listening to Anthony Jeselnik tell a joke, he would take so much time in between every subject of every sentence, and then finally the punchline hits, and you go, okay, I understand what you're doing with the pacing. You're building up the tension. I get it. If you watch an Anthony Jeselnik special at ×2 speed, it's a 30-minute special, and you don't lose a lot of the momentum in previous work. I think in this most recent special, Bones and All, the pacing's a little more normal, a little more natural. It's still timely. He still understands where the beats need to be. He doesn't rush through it like some other comics. But that is a choice. That's not him just talking slow. That is a calculation. In fact, one of the things I love about stand-up is the fact that it is kind of like math. It is like a grammar thing. It is poetry. It is performance art. It is all of these things kind of put together. So let me break down a little bit of what Anthony Jeselnik does so they understand all the faculties that are at play. So Anthony Jeselnik is a traditional setup punchline comic. He tells a joke, In the subversion of the expectation at the beginning of the joke, I talked about this in a previous video I made years ago. I was still living in Greenville. It was during the pandemic. That video is called What Makes People Laugh. And one of the things I talk about, where I reference Anthony Jeselnik in that video, is called the incongruity theory. Now, what the incongruity theory is you expect something to go one way, and then slip on a banana peel. Whoa, that's not what I expected. Waka waka. It turned out to be different than you expected. Comedy. And what Anthony Jeselnik does with the subversion of expectations, he can do this in a one-liner or he can do this in a story, but we'll get to that in a second. What he's able to do with a one-liner is he presents you some information. This information could be one sentence, two sentences. Here's the information that he gives you. And then the last thing he says, the punchline, the ending of this, segment, the last bit of information he tells you is designed to recontextualize the whole previous sentence so that you now have a different understanding than you did before. Whoa, ha ha ha, comedy. Now he can do this in a one-liner, or he can do this in storytelling. Now, Anthony Jeselnik hasn't been one usually to do more long-winded stories. He also hasn't been one to get personal, but again, more about that later. But the way he tells more lengthy stories, there aren't exactly one-liners. He almost goes on a little diatribe here. He goes on a little anecdote, a little soliloquy, if you will, where in this big, long story, the whole time he has to use the traditional, performance art mechanisms, timing, delivery, charisma. If it wasn't telling a joke, it would still be a good story. But then the last line of the story, almost as if you were reading like a Harry Potter book, and the last sentence of that Harry Potter book just changed that entire chapter for you. So what he's able to accomplish on a micro scale, he's also able to accomplish on a macro scale. Isn't it so fun just sucking all of the spontaneity out of stand-up? Huh? I'm just revealing all the magician's tricks, aren't I? But in that sentence, when you have to make sure you know the subject of the sentence, you have to know how does this next sentence then change the context of this previous sentence, you have to be knowledgeable about grammar, the English language. You have to be a linguist. And where math comes in and where poetry, comes in is you have to calculate, is this set up too long for the punchline to then factor in? Like if I use this information and then add this information, we have to then go back and recontextualize this information. You have to calculate what is the correct pacing. You have to calculate what is the correct cadence, the correct rhythm, and then we Venn diagram ourselves into poetry a little bit. Poetry is less, if I say this with the right rhythm and cadence, I get a laugh, that natural knee-jerk impulse response. Most, people who do poetry are just doing it because it artistically makes sense to them. Where stand-ups, we're not doing it because it artistically makes sense to us. I mean, we are, but we're doing it to make you laugh. We're doing it to make you involuntarily make a noise that came out of the depths of your soul, that lizard brain in there, for some reason, instinctually has to ha 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 ha. They make you laugh when you don't want to laugh. So Anthony Jeselnik generally, like I said, is a dark humor, one-liner comic. He's almost like a WWE heel in the fact that he is a anti-hero. He says awful things. Here's the thing about dark humor. Here's the thing about just humor in that style. You have to understand that what he's saying is wrong in order for you to properly get the joke. Ha ha ha. That's not socially normal. Huh? That's a taboo that he is parading as the norm. That is what is funny. If you take Anthony Jeselnik at face value and think he's not playing a character, if you think Anthony Jeselnik believes in the thing he says, you're not media literate. It's the same people who were watching the first 3 seasons of Rick and Morty and thought, Rick Sanchez, what a good role model. No! You are not supposed to look up to anti-heroes. You are not supposed to look up to, like Walter White is not a good guy. The guy from Mad Men, whatever his name, is not a good guy. Part of what makes that entertainment entertaining is that it is wrong. I cannot stress that enough. So as far as the merits of this special goes, do I think it's a good special? Yes, the fuck I do. I think that's a great special. If you're a fan of dark humor, if you're a fan of setup, punchline, one-liner comedians, if you're a fan of Anthony Jeselnik, you will be very satisfied with the special. Now let's get on to the controversy. Anthony Jeselnik took some shots at Joe Rogan, and he took some shots at the comedy industry as a whole. What were those shots? Well, he said that comics who complain about cancel culture are pussies, and if you're a good comedian, you should just, be better at comedy than you are worried about being canceled. And this coming from Anthony Jeselnik. I love that Anthony Jeselnik said this because I have been using Anthony Jeselnik as an example for years as how to properly do dark humor, shock value humor, and not have the entire internet upset with you. You don't have to just demonize trans people. It's like I've been screaming this from the rooftops and Anthony heard me. Thank you, Anthony. Comedians who complain, I should be able to say whatever I want. You're bad at comedy. You're bad at stand-up. It's literally like third graders on the playground who just discovered the bad words. Grow up. I'm not offended as a leftist. I'm offended as a writer. You're lazy. He even said, I'm friends with Joe Rogan. I have no problem with Joe, but I think if you watch his podcast, you're a moron. Look, I quit watching Joe Rogan as soon as he started talking less about stand-up and more about Trump, But that's just me. I listen to Rogan when he has comedians on and they talk about comedy, because that's what I'm interested in, not ivermectin. So as far as the shots taken and the controversy of this Anthony Jeselnik special, not a controversy at all. Anthony was on the money. But let's talk about the ending. The Norm McDonald tribute, for lack of a better term, at the end. Honestly, I thought it was lovely. I thought the story he told about him and Norm, I don't want to give anything away, but it was a very, very Anthony Jeselnik story to tell. He told it in a very Anthony Jeselnik way. And Norm McDonald being a character in an Anthony Jeselnik story, it felt like Norm. It felt like something that Norm would do. And it felt like an homage and a tribute in a way that only Anthony Jeselnik could give to only Norm McDonald. And so, I was watching this special for the first half, laughing at the great jokes. I spent the middle of it resonating with his opinions about cancel culture and how annoying comedians have gotten these days. And towards the end of it, you could have guessed, I was tearing up a little bit. I love when comedy makes you feel something. And even though Anthony Jeselnik has this rough exterior, he has this, I'm a badass, nothing phases me, he let a little bit of emotion show. He let a little bit of humanity permeate his act a little bit, not outwardly. In fact, it's more potent, more profound, more substantive to make it seem like you're trying not to show emotion. And so the fact that it was peeking through his rough exterior made it all the more resonant. I watched this special and continue to be a fan of Anthony Jeselnik. I continue to be a fan of Norm MacDonald. And I say give the special a watch. And if there's a comedian or a comedy special that you want me to review or talk about or do a video essay on, then leave it in the comments down below. My 30-minute special is actually going to be releasing soon. If you want to watch it right now because you just can't wait, then you can go to my Patreon and you can watch it right there. Or you can just wait. It'll be out before the end of the year. My special is called Trauma Bonding, and it is releasing right here on this YouTube channel. So if you want to see that, then do me a favor and like and subscribe. All that jazz. I appreciate you.